The world of financial planning is set for a major shake-up. The government to slash migration levels and increase taxes on foreigners who own vacant homes in Australia. And possibly the biggest sporting deal ever globally was signed over the weekend by a Japanese baseballer playing in the US. Welcome to Fear and Greed Business News, Australia's best business podcast. It is Monday, the 11th of December 2023. I'm Michael Thompson and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael. 2 weeks till Christmas. Haven't done enough shopping yet.
Are we going to get a shopping update from you every day now on just how much shopping you have still got to do?
Pretty much.
On that topic though, Sean, on the topic of retail and shopping and all of that, you've got an interview coming up after the show with Ben Gilbert from Jarden, Australia, and it is on that theme.
It is. It's all about retail stocks. And we start off talking about the general macroeconomic environment for investing in retailers. And then, more so than I think I have ever done in any interview, I just throw names at him and he tells me what he thinks of them. And it's fascinating, from Coles and Woolies, those really big supermarket chains, right through to those that sell clothes, right through to retailers across the board. It is fascinating. We even head into travel companies and things like that. So if you are interested in investing, especially in retail stocks, definitely listen to Ben.
Yeah, it is an absolute cracker. It is coming up after the show today. The main story this morning, though, Sean, there is a whole new world of financial planning about to emerge after the federal government announced a range of reforms to the industry, which should reopen the provision of personal advice to funds, insurers and banks.
The government has adopted most of the recommendations of an independent inquiry into the quality of advice from last year and hopes that by loosening rules around advice, more Australians will be able to access financial planning in an affordable manner. It's a wind back of some of the tough rules introduced after the Hayne Royal Commission into the financial services sector. Under the new rules, a new class of advisors requiring fewer qualifications than current professionals will be introduced. The laws will also lead to the removal of extensive red tape, effectively reopening advice for financial institutions. Financial Services Minister Stephen Jones hopes the reforms will pass by the end of next year and changes introduced in 2025. Michelle Levy, who ran that independent inquiry, said the changes are enough to make a big difference, with advisors hopefully being more accessible and affordable in the future.
That's the key to all of this, isn't it? That it feels like this is a big step in getting more people to be able to afford financial advice.
Sure is, and that is a good thing. We often talk about that on the show. Go and see a financial advisor. The industry itself is in trouble. The average cost of financial advice is too high for many people. It's about $3,500 a year. Also, thousands of planners have left the profession. It means many Australians either can't afford or they can't find an advisor. And this is just as millions of baby boomers are getting ready to retire. Planners have wanted looser regulations around trading, and it just hasn't come until now. The Australian Bankers Association cautiously welcomed the changes. The banks really deserted the advice landscape in recent years on the back of the Hayne reforms that actually pushed the costs up quite a bit. Now, the banks weren't allowed to stay in it. This reversal will allow them to get back into it. It'll be interesting to see how quickly they jump at that. The super funds, which are being pushed to do much more for retirees as well as those in the accumulation phase, are all for the changes. Even the insurers think it's not a bad idea. So very, very big change to that sector. It's not going to happen immediately, but it certainly is significant.
Yeah, major changes for a very important industry. Sean, what are we, Monday today? That's always a bad sign when I'm not at 100% sure of the day and we're just starting the week off. Friday, cast your mind back, 2 days now? How did local markets perform?
The S&P ASX 200 closed up 0.3% to 7,195 points. That was pretty much the high for the week, and that was another 10-week high. For the week last week, the market was up 1.7% on the back of speculation that the Reserve Bank has finished its tightening cycle. Friday was a pretty good day for the energy and materials stocks, not so good for the tech stocks. WiseTech Global, for example, fell 2.5%. That was the largest fall of the major stocks. Sonic Healthcare was the best of the large caps, up 2.7%. The big banks and retailers were mixed, while Telstra closed down.
And what about international markets?
It's a mixed week for share markets. Wall Street was up a touch, helped by a solid, albeit cooling, jobs market in the world's biggest economy. European shares jumped on hopes of no more tightening in that economy, but Japanese stocks fell after noises from the Central Bank of Japan that maybe that economy needs higher interest rates. Now, Michael, I know you're a student of the Japanese economy, but just in case it slipped your mind, you know Japan hasn't lifted interest rates?
That is quite remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, sure is. Sure is. We head into the new week with slightly higher oil prices over the weekend. They were down 5% for the full week. Of course, it's trading around its lowest level in 5 months. Gold's fallen back a bit. It's around $2,000 an ounce. And the Aussie dollar is trading just under 66 US cents.
All right, we have quite a bit to get through today. We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, net migration, the only thing that's ensured the economy grew last quarter, will come down substantially, Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers said yesterday ahead of the release of the government's migration strategy.
The new strategy is due to be released today, and the net 500,000 people that came to Australia last financial year will not be repeated. That number was driven by a record number of international student visas post-COVID. Over coming months, more than 160,000 of those visas are due to expire, and stricter rules will cut the number of new arrivals. Two sides to this one. One enunciated by Chalmers when he said that the system needs to be better targeted and calibrated to deliver for the national economic interest. The other one was probably best enunciated by New South Wales Premier Chris Minns. He said that skilled migrants were needed to fill labour shortages, particularly in the construction sector. Same could be said for unskilled workers. Chalmers also told us yesterday that the federal mini-budget will be released on Wednesday.
Oh, that sounds exciting.
Yeah, he also said there's not much in it. You know, the deficit is going to be a bit lower this year. But he played it down big time.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll still mark it on the calendar, though. Sean, the federal government is going to change foreign investment rules and push up taxes on homes left vacant by foreign owners.
The government expects to raise about $500 million by increasing taxes sixfold on vacant homes. To avoid the tax hike, owners need to rent the properties out, thereby, the government hopes, helping the rental crisis. Kind of makes sense. The changes will apply only to existing homes purchased after May 2017, which the government hopes will encourage foreign investors to invest in new housing developments instead. So when we say existing homes, we're not talking about off the plan. We're talking about homes that have been around for a while. Under the new plan, the fee foreign investors pay when purchasing established property will triple. If the property is left empty for 6 months, a tripled vacancy fee will apply. The government hopes to raise $500 million and help the rental crisis in the meantime.
I'll tell you what, Sean, it's been a big 24 hours for politics because Queensland Premier Annastacia Palaszczuk will retire from politics as soon as the State Labor Party finds a replacement for the 9-year Premier.
It was a bolt from the Sunshine State yesterday and comes as polls show that her personal popularity is falling and that government faces an election in October next year. Palaszczuk, whose name is very difficult to spell, Michael, but I did learn it during COVID. I'm very proud of myself.
Do you know the easy way to remember it, Sean?
Go on.
Because obviously you have the PALA at the start, and then it's SZCZ, and the way UK then, and the way to remember that is Sydney Zoo, Canberra Zoo, UK. I don't know why. Someone told me that years ago when I was writing it pretty much on a daily basis, working in radio, and it just stuck with me. And since then, I've spelt it correctly every time.
Sydney Zoo, Canberra Zoo, UK. I don't really need to know it anymore. I'm not surprised it stuck with you from years ago because she is easily the longest serving state premier. She was elected 3 times in 2015, 2017 and 2020. Served for 9 years. She said that on a 2-week holiday in Italy in September, she made up her mind to quit politics. That'll do it, I'd imagine. She also said that sitting in National Cabinet last week, there were new faces everywhere, and she was working with her 4th Prime Minister. That's when she really realised it's time to go. The final word should go to Annastacia Palaszczuk, who always had her state's interests at heart, particularly during COVID. Yesterday she said, and I quote, "I have fought the good fight and have given everything, but now is the time for me to find out what else life has to offer." Good luck to Annastacia Palaszczuk.
Yeah, indeed. I'm not surprised that Italian holiday helped make up her mind because
Yeah.
remember during that period she had there was I think photographers from an Australian newspaper who were essentially almost acting as paparazzi, kind of taking
Yeah.
photos of her while she was on essentially annual leave, having a holiday in Italy, and they were still taking photos of her over there. And I imagine something like that when you are trying to take a break and everyone is entitled to a holiday would probably make you go, do I want to be doing this anymore?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah. Mind you, Scott Morrison had photos in Hawaii while the bushfires were raging, didn't he?
Very good point. Very good point. So
he stayed on.
The precedent has well and truly been set. Yeah. Now, Sean, still in politics, Jim Chalmers, we've talked about him a bit today. He certainly has been busy. On Friday, he axed a controversial proposal requiring the Reserve Bank of Australia to give, quote, equal consideration to full employment and inflation in a new statement on the conduct of monetary policy.
Instead, there'll be a far less specific dual mandate that leaves the central bank with significant discretion. It can focus more on inflation or it might want to focus on employment. The policy says, and I quote, the appropriate time frame for achieving an inflation rate of 2.5% depends on economic circumstances and should, where necessary, balance the price stability and full employment objectives of monetary policy. Despite resistance from the Reserve Bank, it has also agreed to publish unattributed board votes on interest rate decisions after each meeting and require board members to give one speech or public engagement each year. The statement gives effect to a number of the non-legislative recommendations contained in the independent review into the Reserve Bank, which was released back in April.
Sean, there are plenty more stories in the media about a potential Woodside Energy Santos tie-up, which would create an $80 billion company. We talked a bit about this last week when there's a lot of speculation going on.
Yeah, and it's definitely happening, or at least the talks are. It would become the fifth largest company on the ASX. Woodside explored the prospect of a merger with Santos after Santos moved to quietly implement a strategic review amid rising shareholder frustration over its sagging share price. That has really struggled despite a global energy crunch. Both companies late last week confirmed early stage talks and a transaction could be attractive as Chief Executive Kevin Gallagher approaches the end of his much publicised contract. Sources close to Santos, however, said the company will not accept any deal that doesn't unlock shareholder value. Of course they won't. Shares in Santos were up 6% on Friday. Woodside was flat. It will certainly be a focus of the market's attention this week.
And one more, Sean, a big story, this one. The Pharmacy Guild, one of the country's most influential industry groups, says the proposed reverse takeover of Sigma Healthcare by Chemist Warehouse poses significant questions and risks to patient care, community pharmacy ownership and competition in the sector.
Details of the deal for Chemist Warehouse to undertake a backdoor listing via Sigma Healthcare are expected today. Now, last Wednesday, ASX traded Sigma halted the trading of shares ahead of disclosing details of the creation of an $8 billion pharmacy giant with that reverse listing of Chemist Warehouse, which now the Chemist Warehouse is controlled by billionaire families, the Gantz and Verrocchi families. Sigma, for its part, is raising about $350 million of fresh equity to help fund the enlarged company, while the founding families and their franchisees, many of whom are also family, will be issued Sigma shares. Not everyone is happy about the implications of the transaction, including the Pharmacy Guild. The Guild said the tie-up could jeopardise community service obligation wholesaling, which makes it commercially viable for drug wholesalers to supply PBS medicines to about 5,800 chemists across the country.
Okay, turning to international news now, Sean, and Israel's national security advisor has warned that Israel, quote, can no longer accept the presence of Hezbollah forces on its northern border and said it would have to act if they continued to pose a threat.
Tensions between Israel and the powerful Iran-backed Lebanese militant group have been running high since the war between Israel and Hamas erupted 2 months ago, with repeated bouts of cross-border fire. Despite the frequent exchanges which have led to casualties on both sides, Israel and Hezbollah have so far avoided being drawn into a full-blown conflict amid intense diplomatic efforts by the US and other countries to prevent an escalation, according to the Financial Times. However, over the weekend, a senior Israeli official said that country could not accept a situation in which residents of Israel's north, who were evacuated in the early weeks of the war, were afraid to return to their homes because they feared Hezbollah's elite Radwan force could launch a cross-border attack as Hamas did in the south.
Now, we mentioned this story, Sean, at the top of the show. This is something else altogether. Baseball sensation Shohei Ohtani has joined the Los Angeles Dodgers in the biggest deal in the sports history, a 10-year contract worth $700 million or more than 1 billion Aussie dollars.
It is the largest ever in US Major League Baseball and makes Ohtani one of the world's highest earning athletes. The Japanese player, who is widely seen as among the best to have played the game, was the most coveted target in baseball, according to the BBC. Now, a major bidding war broke out for his signature when he opted to leave the Los Angeles Angels, which is where he is. He became a free agent after his contract expired following a 6-year stint. The auction took place. $700 million. The reported value of the contract ranks alongside or beats the sorts of sums megastars like footballer Lionel Messi or basketball player LeBron James have commanded. Fans and pundits have widely credited the 29-year-old with transforming how baseball is played in the modern era. He is already well on the way to being considered an all-time great. Unlike most baseball players who specialise in either batting or pitching, Ohtani is equally skilled at both. Ohtani led Japan to a famous victory over the US in March, which was their first ever win over the Americans at international level. He's now a very, very rich man.
Sean, it's stories like this that make me wish I played some kind of sport.
Yeah, look, you kind of have to have a certain skill level, perhaps.
Yeah, but you never know. I mean, I could have taken up one of these, whether it's baseball or
something like that.
Something, and who knows? We could have been talking about Michael Thompson signing a $700 million.
So here's a trivia quiz for you. Which sports players, on average, earn the most? So the individuals within a sport, which ones earn the most?
I would say golf.
No,
only because there's fewer of them.
So your thinking's right, but definitely it's not golf. I mean, there are certain players. Tiger Woods is a billionaire. Yeah. So basketball, that is. So the average pay for a basketballer is higher than the average pay for any other sport simply because the roster is so much smaller. There's only 5 people on the court at once and the roster's, someone's going to correct me, but like 13 or something. Yet it is a high rating sport. So basketball is the way to go.
Okay. So is it too late to take up basketball? I mean, also,
No. Look at yourself, Michael. Look at you in that shirt too. You could play basketball in that shirt. In fact, it's like got basketballs on it almost.
Yeah, pretty much. And does it matter that I'm kind of like 5'10.5"?
No.
Like, do you need to be tall?
No. In bygone eras, 5'10" point guards, loved them.
Fantastic. Sign me up.
Right.
Here we go. All right. Sean, I quit. I'm off to play professional basketball. Up next is the Fear and Greed Daily interview. Today you're speaking with Ben Gilbert from Jarden, Australia. This is a great interview.
Yeah, it sure is all about retail stocks. And what I love about it is that I just throw names at him and he gives us his view. I don't know, Michael, 10 or 12 companies, I reckon? At least 10 or 12 companies.
At least.
And just runs through what he likes, what he doesn't like about them. So definitely a good one for investors.
Yeah, certainly is. It's up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform, or you can find it and a whole bunch of other things at fearandgreed.com.au as well. Sean, once you've listened to that, have a listen to Fear and Greed the week ahead, featuring resident economist Stephen Koukoulas.
Yep, pretty excited after last week's Reserve Bank numbers. This week we've got the unemployment figures out for November. We talk about that and the run into Christmas and all that sort of stuff with Stephen.
Yeah, good chat. It's coming up as well. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It is Monday, the 11th of December, 2023. Make sure you're following the podcast and please join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson and that was Fear and Greed Business News. Have a great day.